Thank you for watching us on YouTube. But did you know that if you're on the go, you can get the full show as a podcast now? You can get our morning breakdown of the most important topics facing our country, news not being covered by the mainstream media, interviews with change-making progressives, and info on what you can actually do about all this. Search for The Damage Report on your favorite podcast app and subscribe so you know when new episodes are ready to go. We're gonna do some more updates on Brett Kavanaugh. So he's faced a lot of support from the right, Christine Blasey Ford, many different angles of attack. We've been doing everything that we can to rebut some of those angles of attack. There's one in particular that I do want to focus on, though. This is something that I think has been implicit in a lot of the statements about men who are accused of sexual harassment and sexual assault, including Donald Trump, by the way. But it is getting more explicit on Fox News and amongst its personalities recently. So we have an excerpt from Laura Ingraham talking about her concerns over this scandal. Let's listen.
This could happen to any of you. Let's focus on men for a moment. Any of your sons, any of your brothers, any of your uncles, and they can't do a darn thing about it. Because guess what? If you start attacking this woman's credibility, you're attacking the victim. 30 plus years later, if you start questioning her political motivations, you're attacking a victim. If you start criticizing the liberal groups she's given to over the years, donated to, you're criticizing a victim. There's no win. Where do you go? That's why they released it at the last minute. It was not inadvertent. It was not, and apparently this accuser was fine with leaving Brett Kavanaugh on the second highest court of the land.
So there's a couple of different things I want to break down there. One is that so she's sort of setting up, I guess, sort of quasi straw mans. Like, so what she wants to say is if you question the credibility of the victim, you're attacking the victim. But she literally says if you attack the credibility of the victim, you're attacking the victim. If you attack this she kept saying attack. Yes, that's attacking the alleged victim in this case. And then says, well, what are you gonna do? You have nothing to do. Well, first of all, I mean, as general advice, I would tell people to not sexually assault people. That's one sort of preemptive defense. But he could bring on the witness that supposedly was there, Mark Judge. He's choosing not to do that. Why does that not bother Laura Ingraham? If there was another person in the room, she has no interest whatsoever in having him testify before the Senate. That seems weird. But of course, overall, the message there is, don't think for 1 second about whether Brett Kavanaugh actually raped this woman or attempted to rape this woman. Think only about how bad would it be if your son was accused, if your uncle was accused, if I can think of some other male relative of yours that could be accused. That's the only thing you should be worried about. It's all lies and you could be next, loyal Fox viewer.
Yes, it's the same tactic. I don't know how people keep buying it. And I've said this before. How the people who suck all this up keep buying it. So they're explicitly illustrating how stupid they think you are. They will separate logic from feelings, and then or actually separate logic and ask you to focus on the feelings only. Let's not talk about Brett Kavanaugh, as you just pointed out. Let's not talk about Brett Kavanaugh. Your uncle, your father, your brother, your son, your nephew. It could be any of them. Wait, they're coming for you. Yeah. Like that's all that's left. It's all that's left is fear and stoking how much they're worried about. Oh man, this could happen to my brother. That means it's happening to Brett Kavanaugh. Yeah. Where does that connection happen? So you know, there's plenty of false allegations when it comes to assault, right? But it's not overwhelming, and it's definitely not the majority of the time, right? I've said it before. I've known 5 women that have been assaulted, 2 actually fully raped, which is not like it's like there's the hierarchy. It's all horrible. None of them told their stories, and I was asked to never tell anyone. Yeah. So that type of stuff. It's straight up and regular. So there's nothing they're gaining from keeping it to themselves. But as long as there's that fear that that guy who they're accused of is afraid of his brother or his father being the next, then that's what they're worried about. Because they're getting told the same thing, like, wait, if I say something, what are they gonna say about me? Yeah. And then how much are they gonna bash me over this actual accusation that really did happen?
Exactly. Like, okay, so if you were to take the sum total of all of the false allegations, we can actually know that number. I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna guess that there are 50 times, 100 times as many rapes that go unreported, assaults that go unreported, instances of harassment that go unreported. And feel free to come up with examples of guys whose lives were ruined with no evidence whatsoever that they committed this attack. So they didn't actually commit the attack and they're wallowing in jail. That's an amazing myth, I guess. I don't see the reality of it, though.
I'm sure there's some. I'm sure there's some that couldn't somehow disprove it. And then I can't give you the number, but I'm sure there's folks that have been falsely accused of stuff. It happens with damn near any crime.
Yeah.
There's a false accusation and the person somehow couldn't get away to clear themselves.
Yeah.
But when there's actual things that you're trying to hide from the evidence behind it, those folks that got falsely accused didn't have anything to disprove it, and then we just assume their guilt. This is folks where looking for the answer, and you don't want it.
You don't want the answer, yeah. And by the way, if there are people who have these accusations against them, both in the modern era and maybe 75 years ago, I'm gonna guess that they didn't look like Brett Kavanaugh, those who went down, who might have been executed as a result of this. They probably looked a little bit different. They probably weren't incredibly well-connected, powerful Republicans. Okay, now with that said, I also want to talk about Donald Trump because he was asked about this, and what he did, I think, was just play a recording of him talking about Rob Porter and his domestic abuse allegations because it sounds exactly the same. He said, really, they're hurting somebody's life. I think it's a very unfair thing what's going on. He's not talking about her being forced to move or hire private security because of death threats. He's talking about Brett Kavanaugh. I really want to see her talking about the possible testimony. I really would want to see what she has to say. If she shows up and makes a credible showing, that'll be very interesting. And it's good that we have an open-minded president who will just actually listen to what she says and decide based on that without any considerations of politics. Of course, that's not gonna happen. But yeah, so look, this is exactly how they defend. He's the true victim. It's always the abuser. It's always the accused that's a victim, this poor guy. Brett Kavanaugh is fine. There were reporters outside of his house over the past couple of days. His wife was apparently distributing sprinkles cupcakes to the reporters. You know why? Because they live in a fabulous bubble where nobody's giving them death threats, even though he was accused of an actual crime. The victim, though, she has to move. God knows what's gonna happen with her kids in terms of school and everything. That's what you would expect if you're on the wrong side of an accusation against a powerful man.
Yeah, the president also, he mentioned Brett Kavanaugh's daughters. His daughters have to go through all this. It's just disgusting what they have to do. But he hasn't mentioned Ford's children, her teenage children that she has to live separately from right now either.
Yeah, but you know, like to the extent that we should have concern for the daughters, here's why I'm concerned for the daughters. I'm concerned for the daughters because they're growing up in a world where there's endless apologetics for men who commit sexual assault against exactly that sort of person. How about we create a world where that doesn't happen? Or where if it does happen and they are eventually, girls like that have to accuse that man, they're believed for at least a split second before we go back to the normal political process. And I will advance one thing that I saw a tweet going around, thankfully that was being spread quite a bit. All of these people who are saying, this is just something that happened in high school, can you really judge a person based on that? Do they really know what's going on? Does that really say anything about who they are? That is a great message to send to 16 and 17-year-old boys who were desperately trying to bash into their brain this idea that consent matters and you should actually care about it. To hear all of the most influential and powerful people around the country saying, well, look, if you do something, it's really not that bad. We should probably forget about it in a few years anyway.
You're still young, you can get beyond it. Last thing about the kids. It's one of the reasons that I think they like to put their kids on display like this. Like you saw there also in the first day of the hearings when the protests were happening, they decided to go with and say, oh, you're scaring the kids, his kids, his kids, his kids. Get his kids the hell out of there. Why are they there? Your kids have nothing to do with this. It's so then they can say later, hey, you know, he's got these two beautiful daughters. Don't say anything bad about him. In case he's ever done anything, you can't say it while his daughters are there. It's a wall, it's a shield against the guy and the scrutiny he's gonna see. He's gonna put his kids out there in front of him. How about you eliminate your kids from the spotlight if you don't want your kids to hear about your life? Just get them out of there then. What are they there for? They're there so we can't talk about you.
Thank you very much for watching this clip from The Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.